I want to, if you don't mind, transition to another song that came out that same year.
Okay.
With the great Peter Cetera.
Oh yeah, yes, same sound. It's an easy. It's a
similar sound, except you also have listening to the ISO track. Because I know I sent it to you before, and it's really cool in that like some of the right before you get into the chorus, there's like a doubling. There's like a clean version of the guitar sound, and then a dirty version of that same guitar sound.
Yeah.
And man, that Glory of Love is just like, it's such an amazing song. It's got beautiful clean parts again, beautiful distortion, and the outro too. You kind of like take like this blues solo. I don't know if you listened to the kind of the outro section.
I did.
Of it. It's almost like kind of like a Stevie Ray-ish.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that Peter Cetera session? David Foster was obviously on the he produced that one, I think, didn't he?
No, that was Michael Omartian.
That was Michael Omartian.
Yeah.
And he played piano on it for sure.
Yeah, Michael's great. No, that's Michael.
That's Michael playing it.
Yeah.
So David Foster wasn't involved with that one at all?
Not on that song at all.
Okay.
My memory, I think that may have been the first time I worked for Michael Omartian.
Man.
And so, I mean,
he was still in LA at that time, or was he in Nashville?
No, this was in Los Angeles, in the mid '80s, and the same kind of I had the same kind of anxiety. Number one, or nerves, good healthy nerves. It wasn't anxiety. It was just I was too young to be. I was too dumb to get too nervous, but I was. I knew what I was. I knew this was the upper echelon. Yeah. Michael was making great records, and it was at Lion's Share Studio. I do remember that, and of course, I was a big fan of Chicago, so Peter Cetera, and I remember being just a little bit nervous and going in, and they were the same thing. Just start playing the song.
Yeah,
it was. I think they had one. No, I don't think there were any scripted parts. I think, and of course, this is me looking back now as an much older man in the way I produced records. And I probably, that was school for me that I didn't know that I was entering. Mm-hmm. The sum total of my life and the scope of my life was through the lens of six strings on a guitar.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was be a studio guitar player since I was 13. So I left Nashville at a young age, and if you were going to make your mark, it was to be in Los Angeles. And if you were going to make your mark, it had to be with the top producers. Yeah. So I was starting to for whatever reason, I was finding myself in the company of people like that. So we'd go, but most of these guys were such great musicians and great leaders that they'd throw tracks up. I mean, I wasn't a great reader. I mean, sure, there were charts. Mm-hmm. And back in Los Angeles, as opposed to Nashville, we scribble little numbered charts, Back then you'd come in and you'd have, maybe two stands of music and it would be written out. Yeah. At least the chords and the rhythms and what have you, and a lot of the keyboard parts. If it was guitar parts, I mean, I'd usually have somebody hum them if they sounded, if they looked too treacherous. But I'd go in and they just play. Yeah. And then they'd hear something and go, "Oh, that sounds cool. Let's work on that bit." And that's usually how it came out.
So was Michael Omartian typically the one that was kind of helping you find whatever sort of how he was hearing things, or was Peter Cetera involved at all in that session? Do you recall?
Oh, I know Peter. I've known him for years and remain friends with both those guys. I'm sure it was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think Peter was involved. I can't remember if he was on that song, but I played on a lot of his recordings at that time. So, but he wouldn't have been absent for that much.
Yeah.
But it was just a thing, you sit there, again, this sound, is like, it's like kind of a deal, right?
Yeah.
That was the currency of the 80s. So, you start with that, and it was, all I cared about, I just want to play a lead on every song. That was my guitar ego.
Yeah.
But I had to go through the rhythm stuff, and that was what was getting me hired. So basically, we would just start playing the song and we throw it up and go through some parts.
Let's hear it. Let's hear Glory of Love.
Yeah. This would have been a volume pedal, which I don't have, but just imagine.
Yeah, we'll imagine.
Just same chords. with the lead tone. Something like that. I don't know if that's exact.
That's
but you get the idea, right?
It's pretty exact.
Yeah, yeah. Close enough.
Wow. It sounds so, it's such an amazing part, Dan.
Well, what makes me, I appreciate you saying that, because like for me, it just seems so simple and remedial. Now, again, you heard it coming through the lens of a hit song.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, I go, God, how simple was that? There's nothing to it, but it did have some of the things that you liked it, so that's enough, you know.
But it's the restraint that sometimes you have to show in order for a part to come alive is that, and it's like sort of having the sensibility to understand the difference, you know, between like when it needs to shred and when it just needs minimal, you know, playing and in this great processing and that perfect delay and chorus and all that stuff.
Well, don't get me wrong. All I wanted to do was shred. So I mean, let's be clear. I mean, you know, guitar players have an ego problem. Let's be honest, right? we want to be the center, but you know, during this time, if you wanted to get hired, you're right. Constraint, composition, all those things. I mean, I was never like, you know, I loved guitar so much, but I wasn't like some of my other friends who loved guitar because they studied the history of it and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a vehicle, and lo and behold, I didn't know that I was on a path to becoming a record producer.
Yeah,
you know, I had no inkling of that, but it makes sense because I really loved the way parts related, like composition.
Yeah.
To me, so I didn't know the difference between playing guitar and composition. To me, it was all a part of the same thing. And it's probably why I got hired, because I would come up with parts that were memorable to these songwriters or artists that basically help frame them as opposed to frame me. You know?
No, I mean, you are an arranger. I mean, in that your sensibilities are just so spot on it. It's so amazing just to hear it. And you clearly you had to have some sort of backstop because you want to shred, but you serve the song so well, and it's such a beautiful song. Dan, thank you.
I'm glad. You know, it's nice. It's funny because you know, I hear so many influences in my life when I was looking back at some of this music. And we can get into some of that at some point, maybe when I play some things that are a little closer. But obviously, so much of that little, you know, the little percussive stuff, was so, you know, influenced to me first by Ray Parker Jr.
Yeah,
when I was in Nashville here growing up, I remember the first record that I got was that had both him and Steve Lukather on it. Was a Boss Skaggs record called Down, Two, Then Left. I don't think it had any major hits on it. It was right after Silk Degrees. But back in that age, all I cared about was credits on records. And I'd seen Ray Parker play, heard Ray Parker play on Motown records. So immediately it was the relationship of his guitar playing. I think Jay Graydon did a lot of the tracking with him too. I think Steve came and did a bunch of solos after the fact. But I was always interested in that style of playing. Way before rock music for me was like rhythm playing. And then obviously when I moved to the West Coast, the premier player was Paul Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
Absolutely the top of the tops. And David, well, I mean, again, it's apples and oranges. So David Williams was right in the heart of the scene then too.
Yeah.
So prolific. And so, you know, these were my, I mean, there were other songs I played on, you know, sometimes with those guys too.
Yeah, because you played on a lot of the DeBarge stuff with Paul Jackson.
Yeah. And of course, you know, I would, you know, when you're playing all that stuff, I was going to defer to the best, but there was always little, you know, snippets for me to do too.
Yeah.
And then the fact that I was known more as a rock guitar player, it kind of helped that I had this, my rhythm with playing was pretty tight, and I played on a lot of Motown records myself too.
Mm.
Never got to the level of Paul, but enough for to be hired on all of those records.
Sure.
So that was another part of the currency, that you had to be able to go from this A to Z, and it wasn't enough just to be a rock guitar player. I mean, well, I should say it's enough, whatever you want to do. But if you want to get hired every day, you had to be able to do all that stuff.